sometimes size does matter. Hi, welcome, come on in. My name is Aoife and today I am taking you through some shorter books for historical fiction fans. These are great if you want just a little quick read that is going to tide you over to your next read. They're all under 250 pages, and if you are taking part in the Amazing Readathon this year, and particularly if you are on Team General Fiction, these books will be an absolute asset to you. Whether you want to use them for a sightseeing prompt or whether you want to use them for face-off weekend, these are definitely going to help you stock up some points in a very short amount of time. My first recommendation is Brooklyn by Colm Tóibín. This is the story of Eilish, who grew up in a small town in County Wexford but is moving to New York for a new start in her life. This is something that a lot of people in Ireland would have done up until maybe about the 1980s, and to be honest, as you can tell from me, is still going to this day. Eilish's family were a very small farmer family. Her father has passed away, so she's heading to New York so she can send her mother and her sister money back home and to basically give herself a brand new start. Eilish really struggles to settle into New York. She has huge bouts of homesickness. Even the journey over is full of kind of worry and heartache and sickness because there's a really big storm on the sea as she's traveling. But eventually you do get to see Eilish settle into her new environment, find love, find new friends, and I really love watching her blossom as she settles into New York. There's also a follow-up to this book called Long Island, which is set about 30 years after the events of Brooklyn. I haven't read it yet, but I have recently bought it, and it's on my pile of potentials for the Amazing Readathon if it would fit into a prompt. My next recommendation is Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan. Claire Keegan is one of the best Irish authors at the moment, and something that I absolutely love about her is how good she is at taking such a small number of pages but putting a huge story into them. This book is also set in County Wexford and it follows Bill Furlong. He is a coal driver for a local quarry and he is super busy in the lead up to Christmas, going around to the local homes and giving them a coal delivery that's going to last for the week. It's set in the 1980s, which was not a very financially prosperous time in Ireland. Just like in Brooklyn, a lot of young people were leaving Ireland to go and seek their fortunes in the US or in the UK or in Australia. One day, while Bill is delivering coal to a local convent, he discovers that things are not as they would seem to be. The women who are in this convent don't necessarily seem to be running the lives that the nuns he usually sees would be running. And there seems to be a whole lot of subterfuge and secrecy about what's actually happening in the house. As you read further, you discover that this is actually one of the mother and baby homes that were rife around Ireland up until 1996. So they are still alive in my almost living memory. In mother and baby homes lived young women who had been sent there by their families because they had fallen pregnant out of wedlock. Whether that had been from rape, whether that had been from consensual sex, whether that had been in a consensual relationship, it didn't matter. It was seen as something that was bringing shame onto the family, and the women were sent here so that they could repent for their sins, and the families basically wanted nothing to do with them in the majority of cases. It is such a great look at Ireland's social scene at that time. It really does deal with just how much people wanted to sweep under the rug the things that were happening in these homes, and I absolutely think it's one that you should put on your scene for this year. Emma Donoghue is one of my favourite historical fiction writers at the moment. I have fallen in love with every single one of the books that she has written, but if you want something a little bit shorter, then I would definitely recommend that you go and check out Astray. It's a collection of short stories that take place pretty much across the entirety of North America. You start out on the highways of Toronto and then you head down to Puritan, Massachusetts, you go to glittering New Jersey where everything is starting to take a whole new scene, and you also head down to Louisiana where everything is a little bit more controlled than it would have been in the north. I absolutely love Emma Donoghue, and if you're looking for the LGBT author bonus, you are in luck here as well because this will net you a cool 50 points as well. Staying with the Irish authors, and then I promise you there are other countries on this list, Under the Hawthorn Tree by Maritha Conn McKenna is one of my favourite childhood series. This book follows three young children, Eilidh, Michael and Peggy, and is set around the time of the Irish famine from 1845 to 1849. Eilidh, Michael and Peggy have lost not just their parents but also their younger sister Bridget to disease. And now that they are living on their own and have to fend for themselves, the authorities of the town have noticed this and their names are on the way to the workhouse. Workhouses were full of disease, they were full of hunger, and they were pretty much everyone's last chance at survival. But the three children don't want to end up there, so they head out to a small distant village named Castle Taggart. This is where two aunts of their mothers are now living, and they are super hopeful that A, the aunts are still alive, and B, the aunts are still living there. On the way to Castle Taggart, the children encounter disease and hunger, and also go through an incredibly traumatic experience that you really have to read this book to find out about. This book turned me into a little bit of a baby socialist, so if you're feeling like you want to be angry at the world, this is definitely a book to check out. Girl with a Pearl Earring by Tracy Chevalier is set in Delft in the Netherlands in the 1600s, and it is following an artist named Johannes Vermeer. He is a super successful artist and he is trying to commission his next piece but is running a little bit low on inspiration. His family is pretty well to do in the country and they have just hired a young assistant named Geert. She is going to be the family's cook, she's going to be the cleaner, she's going to take care of the children. And one day, Johannes asks her to sit down and to be the model for the new painting that he is going to work on. He just needs her to wear a pearl earring. The Girl with the Pearl Earring is so popular. Everybody in the world has seen this. If not in person, you've seen it online, you've seen it in films. And it is such a great way of looking at who could possibly be the subject of one of the world's most famous paintings. Breakfast at Tiffany's is not just a movie starring Audrey Hepburn, and it's also not just a song by Deep Blue Something that is kind of about a couple whose only thing in common is a love of the film Breakfast at Tiffany's. It's actually based on a novel by Truman Capote, which is set in 1940s New York, a world of glitz and glamour. And it is also set around Holly Golightly, our main character who is an absolute breath of fresh air among a world of Playboy mansions and billionaires and mafia gangsters. I absolutely love this book, and if you loved it just as much as I do, why don't you go and check out the adaptation once you finished reading it? Another book filled with glitz and glamour and debauchery and massive parties, and that also has an adaptation for you to go and check out, is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. This is his magnus opus. It is his most famous work, and it is following Jay and his relationship with Daisy Buchanan, and also his standing in the New York social scene in the 1920s. It is such a phenomenally written book. It is so intricate, and it's also a really damning look at socialites and at wealth and at glitz and at glamour. I really think this is one you should go and check out this summer. Those are all of the short historical fiction books I think you should definitely put on your TBR, and especially if you are joining me on Team General Fiction for the amazing readathon this year. Have you got any other historical fiction books that are a little bit shorter that we definitely need to keep an eye on? If you would love to leave me a comment but you can't think of anything you'd like to say, then why not just leave me the classical building emoji, because that is our team emoji. Don't forget to like and subscribe because I have new videos up every week. Now, get on out of here.